Hello and welcome to Do the Right Thing. I'm Matthias.
And I'm Jarvis.
Jarvis and I are aspiring writers, which means that we don't write unless we make ourselves write.
So we're doing a challenge. Each week, we set a timer for 30 minutes. Our goal is to write a complete short story using 3 randomly generated words.
Then we come on the podcast, we read the stories, and we talk about what we learned in writing them. Then we finish off by talking about stories written by you listeners.
We're simply here to help you
do the right thing. A Doof Media production.
A Doof Media produce.
Because I keep forgetting to put it into the actual part of the intro, so it fits there perfectly, right?
Yeah, sure. It's not hand-fisted.
No, not at all. So how are you feeling this week, Jarvis?
This week, it's a little rough. If y'all don't know, I think we also said on the last one, but it is midterms. Yay! But the strange thing is that all of my midterms are like next week too. So I get like 2 weeks, a double dosage of midterm action.
Hell yeah.
Which is honestly doing wonders for my stress levels. You know, I'm getting plenty of sleep. It's fantastic. So yeah, this week is okay.
I relate to that. And if I feel slightly down this episode, or if my story is slightly lackluster, blame that on place-associated depression. I don't know what's up with that. Mm-hmm. But that's what happens. Thing. Whenever I go home, there's nothing wrong with my family. My family's fine. My house is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But whenever I'm at home and I try to do work at home, like I feel like grime creeps over my brain and seeps into my eye sockets. So that's what everything I'm doing right now is being filtered through. So that's me.
Yeah, I like honestly totally get that. Yeah, I don't know. I think it could possibly be like when you go to the place that you grew up, you remember all of the things of when you did grow up, and your brain kind of picks and chooses what it remembers, and sometimes those things can be negative. So
yeah, I didn't hear any of that because of the technology is going real bad, but I'm sure that was really well said. You did return back to normalcy after you finished, so there's that.
All right, great. So
yeah. So how did writing the words go for you, Jarvis? Oh, actually, let's say what are this week's words?
This week's words are ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That's a drum roll. This week's words are sneaky, stranger, stick, and thoughtful.
So, obviously, the first thing that I noticed was the alliteration there. The sneaky, stranger, stick, which I thought was really nice.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that can be like a band name right there. Sneaky,
stranger, stick.
Yeah,
Sneaky and stranger I fit together a little bit more than the others, I think.
Yeah,
but how did writing this week go for you, Jarvis?
It was pretty good. I would say that I went in with a solid idea, because I wanted to do a sort of continuation to what I did last week. And I did do that, but I know when I was first coming up with the idea, I came up with the first part of it and the third part of it, not the middle part. So the middle part was just like, well, I should just describe things and kind of just figure it out. And that's why I'm not the most confident in it. Granted, I also wrote it 30 minutes ago.
Okay. Sounds like we're not changing anything.
What are you talking about?
You're right. We've never done it last minute before.
Oh, yeah. I mean, personally, I think every other time besides this moment right now, we've been doing it like weeks, even months ahead of time. So
I completely agree. In addition to just being home, I also have allergies, which like does not help with my eyes feeling weird and like covered in cotton. And my laptop has that weird visual glitch, so everything looks gray on it.
Oh no! So this is not helping on like any front.
I'm being attacked from many fronts.
You're being attacked by.
Yeah, so today is not a great day, right? All of these combination factors of at home, so I kind of have like this wool, like my body just wants to sit around and do nothing and feel bad about it all day. And then I have the allergies from not only just outside allergies, but I'm also allergic to cats, which, I mean, I love them. We have 2 cats here, and that's the problem. And it's also hot in this room. I just got a lot of factors keeping me down right now, and we have technical difficulties. Yeah. So but, it just happens not to be a good day.
But do you know what's the best thing to pick you up, Matthias?
What?
Thinking about writing.
You're so right.
Maybe even better, you should take allergy medication. So that
might help better. Too. I took one, but it's not an antihistamine. It was just a nasal decongestion. So now I can sniff now.
Oh, but so what would happen if you pop 2 or 3?
If I pop 2 or 3, I might die. I don't know. I don't know. Who knows?
So like that is the like difference, right? 1 will clear up your nose, but 2 will kill you.
Yes. There's a fine line to walk there.
That's terrible.
I think it's liberating, actually.
That you're just so close constantly.
Yeah, because who knows, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe I forget to count one day.
So you forget to count and you skip from 1 to 13?
Or 1 or 2. I forget to count if there's 1, and then I take 2 by accident.
Alright, so, Matthias, before I roll into my story, how did you react to this week's words?
So I put it off for way too long. I said last week I would do it earlier in the week, and I didn't at all. But then, eventually I was able to twist around an idea that I've had in my head, and I've talked about on here before into a story. So it works out okay. Something that I need to get down on page somehow. So, yeah. But before we go into your story, let's talk about the community and stuff.
Yeah, what is Doof doing today?
Yeah, well, first I want to say that we've got a bunch of new writers this week, which is fantastic. At least 4 people that I've never seen their usernames of before, and I think 6 new writers total, or 5, something like that. Which is fantastic, especially in 1 week. It's such a big growth. I think 3 of them were the first ones to post of the week too.
Yeah,
which was really cool. So thank you everyone. We will talk about some of your stories at the end of this podcast and give a shout out to everyone. Also, Wildbow wrote a story and it's fantastic. We already talked about the story last week, so we're not and it wasn't randomly rolled. So we're not going to unfortunately talk about it this week. But please go and read it. And on another level, he also admits that he wrote over the timelet significantly.
Shame, we know your name.
which is absolutely a valid thing to do. It's not like we haven't either. But yeah, please go read it. It's really especially good. And I really don't think it has gotten that much attention, which is very interesting. And it's not set in any of his worlds that he's written in before, at least publicly.
All new.
Yes, it's fantastic. So, do I have anything else? I don't think so. Also, we did a Doof and Chill last night.
And it was so fun. It was really great.
It was great. We had everyone, all the core Doof cast except for Matt was there. Mm-hmm. We played Would You Lie to Me? We made up stories. We told some stories. It was a good time. So if do
you know if that's going to go up anywhere? Or?
That's it's still up for $5 patrons and above. And I'm not sure if they're still doing this, but there was talk of putting together a teaser trailer for people who haven't who aren't donating at the $5 level or above just yet, so they can see that. I'm not sure if that's still going to be a thing, but if you are a $5 patron or above, you can go and see that and see the great time we had. So, that's all I can think of right now. If we have other stuff, I'll cut and paste it right here.
Yeah, cutting and pasting right here.
All right, Jarvis. Let's get into your story. So, is there anything we need to know going into it?
So my story is basically a continuation of last week's story, which is different. I don't think I've ever really done it, but I have seen some other writers do it, and they do it magnificently, and I am proud to say that I've done it worse. So that's great.
Okay, sure.
It is the middle of the road blues when it comes to writing something that's a little bit longer, and I think it's fine. I think there is good content within it, and I am excited to share that.
All right, let's go.
All right, cool.
What's it called?
So the title of this is All Hail a Normal Life. A little over a month in this new world, and 4 roommates who live beachside acclimated to All Hallows. Humans are rare. At least true humans are. A half-breed, or half-hume if you're trying to be nice, isn't all too special anymore since the Hallowed Hall's Book of Spells fell into the waking world. In that month, Shades, Trey, Felicia, and Amy have found themselves falling into routine. Trey and Amy decide to join an exploration party, a small mining op the lesser creatures join to gain a bit of spending cash and a sense of purpose. Of course, the name drew them first. Fun and adventure in a whole new world. But as soon as they got their boots and mining sticks, they found some fun in the busy work. Even mining came with a bit of exploration. Past that metal they saw from Mr. Johnson's bathroom, and right before you get to All Hallows, there's a crack in the earth. Partially made from an earthquake, All Hallows has been mining the earth for years, looking for nothing in particular. So on journeys out to the site, they watch a whole new world pass them by. How long do you think this place has been here? Amy said, finally having some calm to her voice. The orange helmet tucked her red hair in nicely, gave her a strange sense of class she lacked. At least a couple of years. I mean, trees don't get that tall overnight. Trey smiled back. Eventually, the brisk walk to the site would come to an end. They would hop down to the mining floor and pick a corner to work at. There was strategy here. The person to find something precious, something valuable, or otherwise unknown, would claim full right of that item. So, finding the best nook could spell fortune. Steal someone else's spot and you might wind up in the rubble. Trey and Amy were smart though. Found a spot deep in the mines where the light couldn't reach and swung away. No creature would go down that deep. The dark is too dank to make sure your axe hits just right. Everyone is too superstitious to wander down old mining routes left over from the initial crack. So it's their territory. In the past, they've found old trinkets and watches. Nothing too special though. Probably lost and found items owned by the previous workers. But they sold for enough, and they could see themselves making a living until Mr. Johnson figured out a way back home. His plan was foolproof in his eyes. Collect candy filled to the brim with sentiment and joy. Extract that energy with a few choice words and get whisked away to All Hallows. Get a second chance with his wife. But the old shop they owned centuries ago was abandoned, along with the village they used to live and the friends they had made. Idealistic that All Hallows would stop and wait for his return. So he had to make sure his next plan was really foolproof. That book of spells he kept by his waist had many solves for this exact situation. Location spell, a time spell, even a spell to undo all spells. All he needed was the ingredients, the right amount of sentiment, and a bit of chanting to make it right. So he booted up the old business. Mr. Johnson's Perky Eye, a lax book cafe that made a killing centuries ago. It took some doing to procure that purple moss that when dried powdered and turned into the perk everyone knows and loves. But after hitting up a few last names in the phone book, he got 4 heaping crates of the raw stuff. Over a month ago, he was an old, decrepit man. But something in the air of All Hallows is so native to his body that it straightened out his back and brought the bounce back to his skin. He was a great man he was ages ago, back to 7 foot and bodybuilder levels of beefiness. He was really feeling himself. Yes, he was focused on getting his wife, but the new life in him could do nothing but make him smile. So those 4 crates of half-dried perk was light work, moving them from All Hallows Mailing Depot to his sizable shop right outside the heart of the city. Shage and Felicia worked the shop with Mr. Johnson. Both being baristas previously, their skills were there, and it was something familiar enough to them to keep them sane. Every morning they'd take the purple powder and filter scalding hot water through it. 1 sip and you'll be up for days. 1 day of soaking it in chilled water and forget about that pesky little sleep for good. To make it taste less like moss at the bottom of a sewer, they would add steamed milk and this melted candy-like syrup that resembled the aftertaste of a Skittle. They sold roughly 2,000 cups per day, raked in a ton of Senta, little blue coins infused with sentiment. On top of that, Mr. Johnson sold books, from the greats like Chekhov and Hemingway, to the more poppy like J.K. Rowling and Philip Berman. Once it was quitting time, Amy and Trey took the long walk from their divot in the earth to the shop, recounted their days with the others and not-so-stranger Mr. Johnson. Then they retired to their rooms, only to do it all again the next day. Then All Hallows Day came around and the city shut down. Every kind and creature taking up their most normal of apparel and hitting the streets dressed as high schoolers and presidents. They partied and drank and danced in the dim light to hits and jams the 4 roommates knew all too well. Surprising to no one but Mr. Johnson, they all stayed in. Not up for the festivities and that homesick feeling really setting in. How do you think they know about Mobamba? Shade said, sipping some perk he just brewed and gagging right after. When the door opens, anyone or anything could come through. All it would take is for one of them to get a cell phone and bam, you have Spotify. Mr. Johnson watched the street through cracked blinds. Though young and handsome now, he still had the watchful eye of a 90-something. Children dressed as lawyers and working stiffs tottered by, giving angry and stressed faces to the others and their parents. Laughable. Amy was by the ray of books, looking for her next read. What would the top song in All Hallows sound like? Organs and Chants? Actually, they really like 90s shit. I think Gangster's Paradise is still number 1. Coolio is number 1? Felicia was over in the corner, looking through the hallowed halls and slowly piecing it all together. And why can't we go back now? Because I need to find my wife. She's here somewhere. Once I do that, y'all are free to do whatever with the book. Till then, though, we have to gather as much sentiment as possible. So why aren't we out there, slanging perk and stealing sentiments? They hang people by the ears for littering. Theft? No way. We go about this as fair as we do any other business. Mr. Johnson leaves the blinds and plops down in an rocking chair by the door. Would be easy, though. Everyone's so scared to break the law here that there's this honor code in place. Doors stay unlocked and all spell ingredients, even the deadly ones, are open to the market. So, if we did steal, well, maybe we could be back home before the month's up. Mr. Johnson's words hung in the air, the idea forming ever so maliciously in all of their minds. Would be easy.
All right, wonderful story, Jarvis. I like that this is an extension of the previous entry. It took a different direction than I thought it would, and we'll talk about that. I really like Mr. Johnson being fleshed out a little bit more here. I think that's my favorite part.
Yeah?
Yeah, how he's wanting to get to his wife, but he's also, like, okay with, you know, just bettering himself a little bit, just glad to be back, basically, which I found interesting, and how he's also a bodybuilder now. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, it's the heir of all Hollows that is bringing him back to his former glory.
Yeah, it's a very powerful form of glory. So one thing I found interesting, though, I think what I would have expected after the last story kind of being like the teleportation to the world is that we would spend more time exploring the world and getting surprised by it and stuff, and the characters kind of discovering it. But you kind of skip over that. So I was wondering what was the motivation behind that.
So basically, the reason why I did that was because I feel that I did want to go a different route with this one. Because at first, of course, it was going to be, oh, here's a whole new world, and then they're mad at Mr. Johnson for taking them there, and then they're going to try and hatch different schemes on how to get back, only to realize that they can't. But then I thought, what if I just skipped all that, right? And I skipped to the mundane life that it seems like they were trying to get away from in the first part, and just see them hop back in to this very normal grind in this foreign world that's pretty fine with them being there. So I don't know. I guess chose to take a different route than I at first thought I was going to go down.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. It felt like we should have been seeing it, so that was one feeling that I had. I guess if I view this more as a chapter 3 than a chapter 2, it makes more sense, right? Yeah, because I think I really my instinct as a reader was to look for that stuff. I was wondering who are these other creatures? Can we talk to them? I would like to. Who's freaked out the most? How are they? They've decided to get back with Mr. Johnson, or to stay with Mr. Johnson, and what the motivation is for that.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I feel like I probably will end up doing that. It's just that when I think through that, I didn't really see anything in telling that section of the story now to where I could actually create a whole story arc with that in of itself.
Yeah, what it did feel like is that you didn't want to really write that you wanted to write stuff about what they're doing and you wanted to write about the mundanity instead. That makes it sound negative, but I mean what the characters are up to.
No, but yeah, that is true. I wanted to write about the day-to-day life, the mundane part of it, and I don't know. I feel that writing about the mundane, of course, isn't the best read, but I, for some reason, find personal glory in it. I enjoy doing that because it is a vital part of life.
Okay,
I don't know. I feel it's kind of glossed over in most stories for good reasons, because it is in fact boring.
I mean, there's different takes to it, right? I like that they kind of find a purpose in it. Another thing is that so this story definitely meanders a little bit, right? We're in the mines for a bit, and then we go and we're with Mr. Johnson as he thinks, and then we're in the coffee place. And then I think we get to more of the meat of the story, the more interesting part to me, which is the character interaction, and then finding out that they're going to pull a heist in this very nice, pleasant place. Mm-hmm. So I was wondering, in my mind, it would make sense to just kind of cut out the mining bits, because it kind of felt out of place with the rest of it, especially. Just starting with Mr. Johnson, really. I found his stuff the most interesting out of all of it.
Yeah, and I mean, definitely when I sat down to write it, I had the clearest vision of Mr. Johnson. But going from the first one to the second one, of course, there are these four main characters, and I feel when I sat down this time, how little time before now that was. I just didn't really have a lot of ideas going, a lot of ideas flowing, so I thought if I just chose to sit down and write, they would come out. And I guess it did all kind of build up to this, I guess whatever the third portion of this would be, which is this heist, which I am actually looking forward to writing, because there are things that really happen within that. but looking at this piece by itself, there were definitely like a lot of things I would have changed. I feel like I probably should have started a little bit later, closer to the meat of it, and then I could have spent a lot more time with the actual back and forth dialogue that I think was, of course, the best part of the last part of this that I did right. So
yeah, that's the lines I think along. So what's the I wanted to learn more about Perk.
Ooh, Perk.
It seems that you really wanted to write about a coffee shop, which is interesting.
Yeah, so if no one knows yet, I currently work at God's greatest company, Starbucks, where the coffee runs free, and we give you free water. We make sure to put 5 pounds of sugar in every single last one of your drinks, so you keep coming back to us.
Yeah, how else are you going to drink something?
Exactly. So after working there for, I guess, like a year now, I think it'll be a year starting today, actually. I started working at Starbucks a year from the 20th of October.
Okay.
So with all that in my mind, I wanted to write about like this coffee shop in a whole new world. And Perk is basically coffee, but it's like really strong coffee that is made from like moss that tastes horrible. But it does wake you up, and if you do brew it like you do cold brew, you will be up for days. So that's good.
So why did you want to write about a moss coffee?
Well, I kind of see there are some similarities, right? Like, the coffee that like we drink comes from beans. And a lot of people feel that plain Jane black coffee, even though I personally like it, tastes horrible. And something else that doesn't taste too good, I've found in my own personal travels, is moss.
Okay.
And I just kind of see it as like this otherworld's equivalent to coffee, because I didn't go in too deep on like what this world really looks like, which I feel if I definitely had more time, I would definitely do that. But I see their equivalent being this moss, this like purple moss that when it does dry turns into a powder that you can thus push water through and make this delicious sludge that people like so much.
Yeah. What I found most interesting about the world building was the idea of essence and like the sentiment as like a magical like resource, which I found that most interesting. So Mr. Johnson's like harvesting it. Yeah.
So going from the like last one to like this one, I was thinking of exactly why Mr. Johnson was collecting candy. And I thought, and I remembered back to when I first was a trick-or-treater myself, right? And that the whole point of doing it isn't the candy, right? It's the act of getting the like candy and getting something that you didn't really work all that much for, or you feel that putting work in to your costume will reap this reward, right? So there is joy in that candy. Not in eating it, but in getting it.
So, that's a very good point. It's an interesting idea.
Yeah, so I feel that the reason why he was collecting all this candy, stealing it basically, is because there is sentiment, there is essence, and there is joy in that candy. And that joy, essence, and sentiment is just what this sort of magic system is based off of.
I would say that those candies now have a hint of betrayal in them. Ooh. Because he stole them.
So they're like malfested candies.
I mean, they have both, right? They got both of the energies. Exactly. Ill-gotten goods.
Which I think is why I set up for for the third one to be them just stealing this like essence and this joy in like different things. So it doesn't actually have to be their currency. It could be someone's car.
Right. Yeah, I'm wondering, did they just steal the heart of Halloween?
They just steal Hallows Eve.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, I won't find out till I write.
That's true. Yeah, so something I feel, if you were to rewrite this, I feel that something that might help would just be to all of the conflict of entering this new world and stuff like that. Obviously, you said you weren't interested in it. I would say, like, make it very clear that this is something that we're already past, and then move forward and show us how it's going. Okay. Because that's the parts that I was most interested in, and I kept waiting for them. So if you signal to us early on that this is not what the story is going to be about, I think that would ease the feeling.
So, saying that it's a month after they got into this world, like, you want me to basically add more to it and show like a time distance, or just set up stronger what this section of the story is going to be about?
I don't know. Like, I mean, honestly, some part of me almost wants you just to put a summary at the top, like almost extra textual, just to be like, hey, there's a section between here and the other part, and here's the summary of what happened. Because I feel like if it was a longer work, you could not get away with not showing it, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
And so, like, just by expositing it, I feel like it just turning into telling without showing us that you're explicitly doing it feels like you're ignoring this conflict, this big conflict. I don't know. Like, it doesn't feel satisfying to me as a extra textual summary saying, hey, out of background, they got through it. Like, you know?
Well, going off of that same idea, right? What if in the next one,
yes,
I do go through that first part where they are, of course, getting used to this world, but there are key plot points within that, and then it skips over this entry to right after when the heist happens, and then those plot points that are being shown in the section where they just got there come back in all new form in the last section.
I think that would... I mean, I don't think you could... I think it would be difficult to do both in one story with 30 minutes, but yeah, I think that would be a cool way to do it.
I mean, like, look at my track record. Not to toot my own horn, but I've been knocking out bangers.
That's true.
30 minutes.
And,
you know, all those ones that I hate, knocked out the park. 30 minutes. That's all the time I have.
And some of them are 2,000 words long, so there you go. And hey, this week's words are Halloween themed, so you're gonna you would have an easy time of it. That's true.
Well, see, the thing is, right? Since they are Halloween themed, I don't know if I want to do anything with Halloween.
Well, there's also a special challenge that you don't use any of the words, but you do write a Halloween-based story.
See, but if the special challenge is to not use any of the words, but use the words, not those words, though, in a Halloween story, I can't do that because I have to be contrarian because I'm cool and I have a personality.
I think that's your best personality trait. Okay, so if you were to rewrite the story, Jarvis, what would you change?
If I were to rewrite it, I would have to go back to square one. I would have to rethink a lot of things. But going with the story, I would have probably started much, much later, so I can give myself a lot more time to actually work on the back and forth.
Yeah, I want to see you show, like, the interactions of, like, you know, are any of them mad about it? Are some of them okay? Like, did some of them are like, oh, I can't go home? That's cool. You know? I want to see. I want to see how they're feeling without being told.
Yeah, and I feel like, of course, if I were to go back and switch up when I started, I would have a lot more time to really focus on that. Because honestly, my favorite part about writing this was the dialogue, but it took me 7 years to really get to it because I was too caught up in setting these other things up. So of course I would go forth, focus on that. I would do a lot more dialogue. I would make the whole thing just them in that room talking about certain things. I think that would be like a really great scene that could really capture.
Yeah,
and then I would give a more of a hint of what this heist is going to be. Maybe even like showing the process of them getting the like info that they need to collect a certain amount of sentiment.
Yeah, and maybe you even like you before they mention the heist, they like look at something that's like full of sentiment and like valuable, and maybe they're jealous or something. You set up that want, that desire first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would do all those things, and then at the very end, I would make the ending stronger, and I would want to change the character of Mr. Johnson just a bit. I do like what I am doing with him right now, but I feel that it could go even further and really give him like a pep in his step and kind of show off that like youth that he has now. But also, like, because he is he's like a beautiful 20-something in the body of a old 90, probably centuries old man.
Centuries.
So I would want to show that dichotomy, I feel.
Sure. I would say that your ending is actually pretty strong. Like, the would be easy creates that strong, obvious impression without telling us and making it obvious. But so I actually really like the ending.
Okay.
Another thing we should keep in mind is that this was written in 30 minutes, and the whole purpose is just to churn out stuff to get better, right? So you're learning what to cut out next time, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is my personal thing, but I have found that recently I haven't really been hitting home runs with my writing, which, of course, there are two schools of thought. You can feel really bad about it, or you can see it as the perfect possibility to grow.
Yeah.
If there are things that are fundamentally wrong with your writing, and you show them to other people, and they tell you that can only be of benefit to you as a writer. So yes, I don't feel like I've been hitting home runs, but also I've learned the most about writing in this time that I haven't really been on my game. So
right.
I'm just proud. I'm happy both ways.
I mean, we're all gonna hit spots, and we just gotta turn our way through them. The trick, the most important part is just to keep writing, right? So
exactly, and to learn from every great thing and every horrible thing that you do, in fact, write.
Yeah,
that's all it chalks up to. But if we're talking about learning, I know someone who is very well learned. It's Matthias.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you.
So, what is your story looking like this week?
Yeah, so I came in with it with one idea, like one thing that centered around it was thoughtful, and I had something about. Well, I guess this is stuff better saved once you know what I'm talking about. But I came with one idea, and it turned out not to be that idea, but that's okay. I'm relatively happy with what I wrote. It reads more of maybe not even a first chapter, but like an interlude or something. Okay. I want to point out to everyone listening that this is very Wild Bow story inspired. It's very obvious in retrospect. Well, not even in retrospect. I knew what I was doing.
So you're stealing.
Yeah. So this is actually a story about a bullied girl with an unconventional superpower to control bugs. No. For the most part, you're not going to know these references because it's based off of parts of the stories that you haven't read. Like it's some world-building stuff about Worm and some stuff about Pact that you don't know yet because you haven't read that
far. I've read all of Pact.
Oh, okay, that was quick.
Yeah, the ending is he makes that deal, right?
Yeah, he makes that deal.
Yeah, and then
he wins $1 million.
Yeah, he made a pact with Demon Dude, who is my favorite character in the whole show.
Yes.
But book. And through that deal, he won a
haircut.
$1 million and 70 virgins.
And a haircut from Demon Dude.
And a haircut, which was free. Actually, that was
actually
free of charge.
that was actually what he was giving in exchange.
Oh, so he cut the Demon Dude's hair.
No. Like he offered the hairstylist Demon Dude to give him a haircut.
Oh, I didn't know that's how offers work.
Yep.
You give me a haircut.
Yep. All right, let's Okay. So I just wanted to say that. So I'm aware of these inspirations, and it's something that I think as I continue this thing, like the ideas become more my own, and I'm hoping that they don't feel like straight rip-offs. But if they do, send me an email and call me out.
Oh, don't worry, I will tell you. Right here.
Oh well, you don't know about the. Okay, let's jump into my story. This story is called Shell Spirit, or Shell Spirit is how I wanted to have the. It's called Shell Spirit. So now I'm going to read my story. The being fell. It was a purposeful fall. It split as it fell, and split again and again, splintering. This was also purposeful. In the doing, discrete knowledge, power, feelings, personality traits, and purposes were secreted apart. One splinter landed in the forest. The splinter hovered in a clearing over a floor of stone draped in snow, surrounded by trees. It was cold. Already the splinter's being was unconsciously reaching out, carving its essence onto surroundings to give it some kind of material presence. Lines were drawn in the snow and then carved into the stone beneath, runes taking shape. There was an itch the splinter wanted to satisfy, and the scratching of the stone was only helping marginally. The splinter opened its awareness, spreading a thin sheet of its being across miles of forest. It could feel hills, snow, wind, trees, creatures large and small. It had an implicit understanding of each individual object, but had no way to classify or categorize them. All its knowledge was in feeling. Its awareness blanketed an area where trees had been cut apart and forced into different shapes by sentience. Small fires burned inside and outside the shapes. The sentience had altered their environments. The spirit felt a connection to them, though it couldn't see where the connection was from. The spirit tapped the mind of the sentience. In a moment, language filled the splinter's mind. The splinter's awareness of the land around it clarified into names and categories. Cultural knowledge flooded its being. Concepts of birth, fear, the feeling of a hot fire in the cold months. It realized it could taste, and that taste was good. And so much change. Forcing change onto wood by carving it into something new. Internal change from young to old. Change from love to hate and back again. The splinter reveled in these concepts. It loved these things, these turns of change. It loved how, in a different season, the leaves of the trees around it would turn from green to red and yellow in fall, even though they were dead now. And in a season from now, the snow would melt into coursing rivers and greed would flood the land. And all these things had meaning. Stories entered its mind. Was the splinter a person? Was it a mother or a father? A child? If it was a child, would it grow to be a mother or a father? Would it change others? It found the mythological concept of spirits, and found them interesting. They were both alive and not alive in the stories. Was the splinter alive? It wasn't sure. It became distinctly aware of how indistinct it was. It wanted a form. Its essence retracted from afar, and in doing so, swept through the trees, picking up sticks and fallen leaves, mud, and detritus, which gathered in the clearing as a swirling, chaotic maelstrom. The spirit's form took shape. Mud formed the core and flesh of the spirit, ever-flowing and wet, but always intact, fused together. Pine cones swirled in the air and were taken apart carefully and layered like scales. The spirit swirled around the young evergreen and stripped it of its fragrant needles, and they flowed to cover the spirit's spark entirely, becoming a green fur which rippled as the spirit moved. However, while the form was material, it was still indistinct, ever-shifting. Legs grew and shrunk as it could not decide. It did not feel that it should copy the sentience, for that would be claiming to be like them. It was not like them. It would copy the animals. It searched for meanings. It found the owl as a prominent creature for being wise and calm, thoughtful. The spirit rejected the owl outright. The elk had connotations of power and elegance, and second only to the bear for war. But both of them were interesting, but their positions in people's minds were too rigid, too hierarchical. It searched for other creatures, smaller, more interesting. There was one now, observing from the edge of the clearing. The spirit's understanding of the culture in the area told that it was a fox, which hunted smaller animals. It was regarded as a pest, and simultaneously a beautiful, elusive creature. The dichotomy was interesting. The knowledge of stories told the spirit that foxes were elusive, sneaky, with connotations of cleverness, being tricksters, and cunning. Though they were not at the top of the hierarchy, they would steal from the bear. The spirit liked that. The maelstrom shrunk and coalesced into a single form. The little orange fox at the edge of the clearing watched carefully as the chaotic swirl died down, and out of the wind and mud appeared another fox. Except this fox had green fur and piercing night sky black eyes, a dark mirror image. A shiver traveled through the orange fox's fur, and it bolted. The spirit watched it go. It was a fox now, no longer indistinct. The term spirit fit awkwardly now, but fox did as well. It needed a new category. It searched the culture's stories, and found some of people or creatures, it was not always entirely clear which, that caused the trouble while holding to odd rules. These were called fae, or fairy. They were good and bad and eternal and changing. The spirit thought that fit well. The fairy looked at itself. It was in the form of a fox constructed of force elements: green pine needle fur, pine cone skin, mud flesh, and stick bones. When it would eventually present itself to the sentients, it would conjure ideas of slyness, smallness, tricksiness, but also annoyance. It liked some of these concepts, and not some of the others. Quickly, before the form set, the fairy searched the area. It's found something and bounded towards it, as its being was coalesced and unable to affect change from very far. It found the object and used its power to dig it out from under snow and leaves. Antlers. Elk shed them every year, and these were from a previous season. They were small, but spiked wickedly. Antlers had connotations of power and war, but also of nobility and elegance. The fairy brought them into their being. One side was curved more inwardly than the other. The fairy liked the asymmetry. Its form was chosen. It knew what it was, though it did not yet have a name. In this world, names were something others gave you, so the fairy held off on doing so itself. For now, it was enough to have a body. And it knew its desires. All the splinters of the original being had taken different pieces. The others were out there, no doubt finding their own forms, their own drives. This fairy had one part above all else. It wanted to change things. The fairy bounded in the direction of the closest village. That's the story.
Yo, I absolutely love that. That was fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was a really well written story of how this spirit creature is latching on to like different things and learning more until it finally becomes something that can think and that can feel. And I don't know. I think it was written so perfectly how you went. It's this huge snowball effect I felt throughout the entire piece, and I really liked it.
Well, thank you very much. This is an idea that's been bouncing around in different forms. This is like halfway between two versions of this idea. So, yeah. This isn't canonical to whatever I end up doing, probably. I actually wrote a story a very long time ago, probably like a year ago, that basically had this creature, like it was described differently, but this is kind of like a spiritual prequel to that, so it's interesting. Originally, I wanted the thoughtful to be, like, originally the creation was going to be so much shorter. Like, I went into it being like, okay, quickly I'll just create it over, like, just 2 paragraphs, and then I'll go do the actual story part that I want to do. But obviously I didn't do that at all.
And also I think that's to its benefit, because you definitely took your time and gave us these really small things to like chew on, to where when we did get the full picture, it was satisfying, I guess.
Well, thanks. So just to finish off, the original idea was that it would go and it would find a thoughtful boy, and it would like empower him to like do stuff, even though kids should not be the ones making decisions. Like one of the main what I have this story idea of a world where like everyone has familiars, right? And
I remember.
So everyone has familiars, but then basically a god comes down, and the god just wants to fuck shit up, and it doesn't actually care about, doing good or whatever, but it approaches a kid and tells them that they're the chosen one, and that everything they do is correct. And so the kid goes off and, tears down an empire or whatever, except the empire was actually doing some good. It may be some bad too, but also some good. Because the fairy in this case really just cares about change. So that was what this idea comes from. I don't know how much of that is going to be in this version of the fairy, but it's its main drive is change. I wasn't sure. This is something that I went back and added a little bit more, but I wasn't sure how much the idea of change fit into this description of the spirit.
I see.
Like, I try to go back and add stuff about I didn't like the owl and, just a couple of hints. I don't know if it was enough though.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely did get a strong sense of that just based on how many times it seems like the direction it was going in switched. But I do also feel that that felt a lot more like it's just coming into its own, is not inherently in acting change. So I feel it's like half and half. Honestly. Sure. I feel that like if it was a fully sentient being, and then at that point it is making those choices and those calls, then that would of course be clear signs of this theme of change. But yeah, that's just my take. Right.
Like maybe if in chapter 2 or whatever, or I say chapters, but this is like 800 words maximum. So like this isn't really like a whole chapter at all. But like if it were to continue, it would go to the village and it would start doing stuff, and maybe that's how it discovers what it wants and how it wants to do change.
Yeah, or like it could see something that changes very often. Like, what's some of that change?
I actually have an idea that like. I had this idea of the metaphor of stealing from the bear to come up and like be slightly more important. So maybe it could go and then could see like a chieftain or I don't know some kind of authority figure, maybe just the lord of the place, just being a dick or something, and then empowering a child to steal from the bear, which is the lord, the subversion of the normal order of things.
I see. Okay.
I kind of have this idea of like this being a spirit of revolution. Whether or not revolution is good.
So, because that is true, that revolution is like the embodiment of change.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see that fitting within the world that you're building right now, and also the parameters of where you want to take it.
Yeah. And this also ties back to. I think I mentioned it before. I think I did in an idea corner, but the idea of having these familiars that are these spirits that are based in natural stuff, like that's their whole form. So this is kind of in between because they're not the normal, like they're not everywhere, right? This is like one distinct individual piece, like it's set apart from the normal order of things, right? Because the original being was split. Right, and there's only so many splinters, so it's not quite the same as there being familiars everywhere, but it's related to the idea, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. So, going back, right, even though you said, of course, that this is part of a larger thing, looking at this piece by itself, what would you change if you had unlimited time and the chance to actually go back and make it something that you're proud of, or
right?
Super proud of, double proud of.
I think I would add. I would add like a little arc of it finding itself. I would extend this out a little bit further, and like kind of bring up the question of like what is it, right?
Yeah.
And maybe like having its physical form isn't enough for it, and maybe at the end it does name itself or something. Or I would leave this entirely as background, and I would do it from the eventual child's perspective that the spirit approaches and has it enacted its revolution.
I see. Because that was one thing that I kind of found a like hardish time when reading it and then also listening to it is what am I supposed to be visualizing, and how there are pieces in there that definitely pull towards that, but I didn't see anything that was very specific, very grounding.
Sure.
Like the where, like, I don't know, colors or sounds or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, it's something that was very clear in my mind, but that's because I was picturing it. So I really wasn't sure how much it came through. I knew in the beginning it would be vague, but I was hoping that like in the very beginning, the original being is splitting and stuff like that. So I was okay with that being vague, but I was thinking that when it landed in the forest, that there would be more clarity. But then again, I had the idea of the splinter being an invisible kind of just like essence in an area that doesn't have an image, and that the only image is other material stuff around it. So,
well, and also as it did go on, I did get a lot more of those pieces that like I was missing. But I feel in the beginning, it started from a place that was so vague, that it was hard to keep it going. I guess throughout. I mean, honestly, there's nothing much you can really do when you're trying to describe this being splintering into multiple pieces. Which I think your choice to actually use the like word splintering was great, and it provided the right amount of imagery that we needed to actually get from point A to point B. I just feel it would be nice to get instantly hooked on something we can see or feel with our sensors.
Okay, yeah. So maybe I could just describe like the spirit at the very beginning, like when it lands, just to be like some swirling wind. Like just give it some kind of
something.
Yeah,
give it mass.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. All right, let's go into listener submitted stories.
Woo woo woo! We got 1,000 this week. That is crazy. That's everyone on the planet submitted a story this week.
Pretty impressive. So this week we will be reading stories by
Kippos 21. More Didamail.
Moridinamail.
Sarah Penguin.
Rid Tom. And Haunt of the Heron. So apologies to everyone who did not get selected, but every single time that you do the right thing, your chance of getting selected goes up, guaranteed.
Yeah, and also thank you so much for submitting in the first place. The more you submit, as Matthias just said, the better chances you have of being talked about on the pod.
So the first story we're going to talk about is... Oh god, I thought I closed them. They're back open again.
Kippos 21!
Yes, Kippos 21.
Which is named Surprised.
Which was a very useful title. Like, this is one of those titles where, like, it really affects how you read the story.
Yes, a lot.
Which I think it's a good take. Do you want to give the summary?
Yeah, so basically the summary of this is that this woman named Ash is going into her place of residence, but she sees a person in the window duck down. So of course, like any rational person, you don't call the police. You just barge in there and you try to see what's going on.
Well, she sneaks around and gets in through her window.
Yeah,
picking up a stick along the way.
A lot of work. And then she finally sets an eye on the person and pokes them with that stick. And then they turn around and say, "Surprise!" And apparently her entire family is there because they have been playing this surprise party for quite some time.
Yeah, so this is a fun little short, basically.
Yeah.
It's so because we know that there's a surprise coming, right? We go through and be like, "God damn it, Ash! No, stop!"
Yeah,
okay,
and she's trying too hard,
and also having the thought of like, why? Even if this was a real intruder, why would you do this? And just getting amusingly frustrated with her. Yeah. And then she hits someone really hard.
And then also, I really like that Kippos went through the work of telling the story of this very common situation that you see in TVs and movies. I think even Key and Peele did a sketch over surprise parties and how kind of horrible they are.
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate the effort, but don't break into my home. But I do feel that the way this was written was both parts self-aware, but also giving you a lot of this. It's giving you a lot of character pieces of the kind of person who would sneak into their own home to stop a intruder.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that.
Yeah. So this is a really, really fun short. I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah.
What would we critique? I guess it's more substance that we just would like to see more, right?
Yeah. And then also, I think one of the downside, which also comes from the title itself, is that once I started reading, I knew exactly what the ending was.
Right.
And I get that could possibly or probably was on purpose, but I would have liked to have it actually have a twist. Not and even if the twist is that it is a surprise party, I would like to go through the motions of actually trying to figure that out versus it being very obvious, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's possible to change the title and then have us piece it together as we go. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I do like the note of Ash sending the text to her friend that there's an intruder and then turning off her phone for very logical reasons, but it registers to us as oh my gosh, she's not going to get the text back saying that it's a surprise party.
Wait, so why does she turn off her phone?
She turns off her phone because she's like, oh no, it's gonna buzz and then the intruder's gonna know that I'm here and I'm gonna get killed.
Put your phone on mute, girl.
Yeah, right. Okay. Anyway, let's move on to the next story, which is by Moradinamail, also known as Matt Freeman.
Hey, did you just unmask him?
Yes, I did.
Yo,
full on.
Wait, have you seen The Boys yet?
I haven't.
Oh, well then, never mind my joke. Go ahead.
No, I already got my fill of edgy superheroes, and that's Worm. Except it's not when I say edgy, I mean it's like dark superheroes.
But
realistic.
I will tell you this much: The Boys has done super well. Well, one of my favorite TV shows out right now, and I feel it is one that you would enjoy very much.
I'm sure I would.
Yeah. But
anyway,
let's on the edge.
Let's talk about our fellow Doofcaster.
Stowaway.
So this story has us go. We're kind of in this interesting. We're in an interesting world, right?
Yeah.
Where
sci-fi pirates,
sci-fi ship. It's kind of. I think we're in cyberspace, basically, where the captain is using nautical terms because that's the kind of person they are, even though it doesn't actually apply to cyberspace in the same way. And basically, someone has hitched a ride in their data stream or something.
Mm-hmm.
I say or something. It has been a little bit since I read it. I read it earlier in the week, and I realized I probably should have reread it for this episode. But
hitch in their crypto space.
Yeah, and so when the captain to lose this piggybacker decides to revert their save basically to back when they were at their original location, and this whole story is told from the perspective of the ensign, who is in charge of this basically, but she realizes that when they teleport, the stowaway might get trapped in space if there is a stowaway, and they could die. And so has to save their location. And it becomes kind of something that they're not allowed to do. And there's some mystery there and some tension. So, Moradinamail says that it doesn't resolve the way that they kind of wanted to, but I think it works out pretty well. I think it is kind of like a whole arc thing. Obviously it implies that there's more to the story, and we should we can watch more like we should read more, but I think it works by itself.
Yeah, and I mean, like just the way that it's written, the prose are great, and I love how much work they took to really set up this this world that is unlike anything else that I've seen. I think that's probably why I like it the most. I never really thought of a like cyberspace type stream in the context of a ship, and I think that's like a really great angle to go at.
Yeah. And I think this is connected to his previous world, which is the story last week. I'm pretty sure was about a sort of digital tournament, which I thought was interesting because I don't really see the connection that much between the two worlds, so I'm really interested in seeing how they connect.
Mm.
All right, so next we're going to talk about who's next?
Sarah Penguin.
Sarah Penguin.
A price for two.
A picnic for two.
Yo, I really thought that said price.
It's a picnic because they have a picnic in it.
Yeah, but my mind said a price for two makes sense for the story, and it doesn't. So
okay, do you want to summarize it?
You do it, please.
Okay, so Brianna, we start off with Brianna. And it feels this character feels very familiar, but I don't know. Yes, they read a part 1. I forgot about that. Yes, where they go on a date. And they're they're anxiety ridden. So it starts off, it's in 3 distinct parts. Basically, the first part, is getting ready for the picnic, and, we can directly see how anxious Brianna is without actually, needing to be shown like any physical response, because we see her thoughts of like, what sandwiches did he like? Would it be too clingy to call and ask him? And going on as she tries to figure things out and doubts herself over and over again. And then
it goes to the park.
Yeah, and the picnic just goes like nice. We see some more like tension building things as she's worried about it, and a little awkward. But and she's worried about David, she's going on a picnic with. But it goes all right. But then the last one is, they're in his apartment, and she seems to be like committing to, have sex. But like she becomes really, really, really stressed out. And she goes through this mantra of like counting and having deep breaths to like calm herself down so she can continue, because she's had a sexual assault in the past. But she wants to continue to like take it back because she feels that part of herself has been lost, until her mantra becomes audible. And she's like kind of mortified for a second there. There's this great part where she like, we get the description of we get a physical description of the effects of her anxiety as juxtaposed with David's lack of those. So, she was dripping in sweat and breathing heavily. She wiped tears from her eyes and looked over to David, who was lying next to her. He was not covered in sweat, breathing normally and looking concerned. And basically it ends with a really heartwarming thing of David just like accepting that some things are difficult and just hugging her, and it's really beautiful and really nice, and she cries and we cry too.
Yeah, it was a fantastic ending. It had me from the beginning to the end. It felt very honest, and I feel that's probably the best part that I felt about it. It felt very genuine. It wasn't trying to be anything that it wasn't, and yeah, that ending definitely got me, and yeah.
Haunt of the Heron comments that the story was so relatable that they think that they might have anxiety too. So that's an interesting thing. This is it hits hard. My favorite part is the mantra becoming audible. Yeah. As we kind of subvert that expectation, because as I read it, even though there was quotation marks, I thought it was just that's just the stylistic thing. I thought that they were still counting in their mind, and I don't realize that it's audible until the character David points it out to us and asks about it. Really well done.
Yeah, keep it coming. If you can. I would love to read
if you more. Can. All right. Let's go on to Haunt of the Herons, who is a new submitter.
Woo!
So this story is called Stranger. So good job using one of the words right in the title.
It could be Stranger Things.
Yeah, it could be Stranger Things. So this is an interesting story. Basically, not the only post-apocalypse story this week. In fact, someone I'm pretty sure wrote something that would fit right in Mad Max.
Yeah.
But this story is of a bioengineered person from a yeah, his name is Cardre. Cardre sounds better, actually.
Cardre, yeah.
Cardre, and in this post-apocalypse world where, like, this place that he's from, which is called the Garden, probably an allusion to the Garden of Eden, obviously. The people there survive off of these falling leviathans, and there's, like, mutated people and stuff, and they're all, like really messed up, like they're really powerful kind of mutants. And we have this really great it's a long story, so I'm gonna skip over a lot of stuff. But basically, there's a particular mutant leading a tribe, and Cardre is really conflicted about killing them because, like, they're going to die if they, Cardre needs to secure the Leviathan, but the mutants want it, and they're going to die if they don't get it. But it's Cardre's duty to kill them, basically, and so he feels really guilty about it. And we have this, like, interesting talk about their humanities as Cardre is very much not human in appearance, but he's securing food for people who might be able to remain human, but he's killing people who are less than human and stuff. So it's a very strong piece that, like, a lot of questions raised, and ends with Cardre having killed the mutant that tried so hard to survive, and really questioning if they should support the Garden and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, honestly, going from start to finish, I'm just appreciative how much care, honestly, went into this post-apocalyptic world, setting up certain things, and I don't know, it definitely follows throughout. As, like you've said, it reminds me so much of an even more metal version of Mad Max, which I absolutely dig.
Really take the mutant stuff to the next level, which is one of the more interesting parts to me.
Yeah, definitely. And something that is missing from Mad Max, so get on that, Mr. Max.
Yeah, get on it. Ridley Scott. Anyway, so really great story, really great first submission. Haunted the Heron, in their comment, they're very humble. Yeah. And I hope that this helps them better their own writing.
Yeah.
What is there anything that we would want to critique about this piece?
No, honestly, I think it's really solid for what it is. Yeah, I would say more. Give me more.
I want to give a critique. I can't think of anything.
I think the only thing is that I personally don't get a very strong sense of who Cardre is, and of course he is this, like, totally different being. So it's hard to really find ways to relate or at least relate him to certain things. But yeah, I'll say that'll be the, like, only thing is that the, like, main character, I don't feel who this person is, and for him to, of course, be the main character, you will want a stronger sense of who that person is.
I don't know. I feel like I got I feel like I get a sense that they're kind of like just a paladin type, and they feel guilty about stuff, but they think that their purpose is important.
Okay.
So, related to that, I think something that could use a little bit more attention is the appearance of the character, because I actually don't know what they are. I know they're kind of alien, and maybe that's the point, is to leave it a little vague, but I could use a little bit more description of what they are, because I know they're very inhuman. They've got, like, multiple arms.
Yeah.
They, have, like, hair under their armor or something. Yeah, maybe finishing off with, like, a broad view, like what most of their structure looks like. All right, so let's move on to the next story, which is our final story of this week by Rid Tom, another first submitter. So this story is called Comfort, and it is anything but. And so we start off with, like, a kid kid, saying that they had a dream, and the mother is called Rachel, and is basically like I got the feeling that they were very depressed because they feel like they have like almost no connection to their daughter Emily, and they're a single mom, and I think it's implied that they're pretty young, and
yeah, because it definitely feels like that parent who you can tell. Like who you can tell is trying their best, but their best isn't really that much.
Yeah. I think that's a good description. And Rachel really, like, I really want to focus on that not having any connection with their daughter. Like, I mean, it's stated pretty explicitly that they have like nothing in common, which is a weird thing to ask of your child.
You have to be like me.
Yeah. But and how Rachel like always feels like uncomfortable. But basically we get to Emily's room, and the tension starts to slightly go up. And then we see that Emily has drawn a drawing of something that she saw in her dream, and it's fucking horrifying.
Yeah.
It's a drawing of their house, and then there's like the creepy monster outside. I mean, it's a classic trope, but it works, you know. And the monster looks horrible. And we get the reveal that Rachel has the same drawing in her safe next to her gun, that she drew it 20 years ago. And Rachel feels comforted at the end that they now have something in common. They're both doomed, which that
was fun.
Yeah, it was a great little punchy ending. I think Haunt of the Heron said it doesn't work. The Haunt of the Heron said that it didn't work for them, but it worked for me, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on how you're really reading it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if you are taking like all these events seriously, that very like cheesy-esque trailer end phrase will definitely take you right out. But the way that I was reading it, which was of course with a sense of seriousness, but also just, you know, looking for like really, really good things that I want to read. I felt that ending hit just the right chord for me.
Yeah, it very much worked for me. If I were to give a critique, it would be to add a little bit more of the spookiness or more definitely tension to the beginning, because I feel like it's only when we see the drawing that we start getting the tension of fear.
Yeah, there was,
for the most part,
there's no strong lead up to it, really.
We feel. I mean, we feel the depression, right, of the lack of connection, but not much tension, right? Or like, I don't know if something could add about you know, maybe Rachel's scared of the dark, right? Or feels that there are things in the dark, or maybe Emily has had trouble sleeping recently, which I think is implied, but I think we could have that stated a little bit more explicitly. Or maybe she like shies away from the thing in her memories, you know. It shows a little fear a little earlier.
Yeah.
But
also, one thing that I'm not sure. Well, one thing that I think I might have missed. How old is Emily supposed to be?
I think she's 9,
okay.
But I don't know if that's stated explicitly, but it took me a little bit to find it, to read. No, she's actually 6, because it's drawn at a typical quality that could be expected of a 6-year-old.
Oh, okay. I see. All right. Yeah, that was something that I must have just read over. So.
Yeah, but it was something that wasn't
unsure.
Super obvious, yeah. All right, so that's all the stories we have this week. But thank you to every single person that submitted, because without you guys, we wouldn't have a podcast.
Yeah, and without you, we would be poor, even though we are so poor. But we are a little
even more
richer.
Poor.
Yeah, we have more heart now. So thank you so much to Megfire7.
It's Megafire.
Megafire7.
Yeah, who is a longtime Doof patron, but is the first time submitting Do the Right Thing, so thank you so much for joining us. And then Calanero985. Why do you always get the Nat ones, which you always insist on mispronouncing?
Listen,
you did okay that time.
I'm gonna be honest, bro. My eyes ain't working good.
Kausubalu V2.
Kippos21.
Sir Raven.
Shin7.
No Goodbye.
Shore 40.
which is another new Do the Right Thinger. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Nipiton.
Strange.
I think it's one. I think it's sturge.
Sturge?
Yeah, I think that's a kind of bird.
Oh, sturge.
It's actually kind of like a heron, I think. But another new submitter. Again, thanks. I'm going to say this 3 more times. Moradinamail.
Wild Bow.
Yes, thank you so much. And if you haven't read that story, please go and read it, because it's fantastic. Sarah Penguin.
Haunt for Heron. Haunt for the Heron.
Haunt of the Heron.
Haunt of the Heron.
Ghost Pac-Man 4.
Rid Tom.
And Cam Tist, another new submitter. Also, Rid Tom, of course, also new submitter. So thank you, everyone who's joining us. Thank you for everyone who's writing along with us. If you haven't been writing along with us, please consider doing it again, because, you just have to sit down for 30 minutes. Of course, I say that, and then I always do it last minute, so that's me.
Yeah, but honestly, writing along with us is the best way to honestly improve your writing. Or just writing in general. The act of making it a habit is how you get greatness.
That's true. And as soon as I have 1 more hour every day, I'll start writing every day too. But, oh boy, gotta prioritize. Yeah, so if you want to write along with us, all you have to do is go to /r/do the right thing and go to the latest episode thread. We also have a special challenge this week, which, We'll cut and paste this section. Mm-hmm. We also have a new, we have a special holiday challenge this week. So stay to the end of the podcast to find out what that is.
Yes.
All right. So yeah. So this week we have a new challenge. I'll announce it at the very end when we go over the words. But yeah, go into the comments, set the timer for 30 minutes and write your story. You just have to use 3 of the 4 words. If you want to find out the words, you can follow our Twitter, at RightThingCast.
Yeah. Or, if you want to just hit us up one day out of the blue and ask questions about anything, or if you can't get on Reddit for some odd reason but still want us to submit your story, you can always hit us up in our email, which is rightthingcast@gmail.com.
That's right. The new words come out on Fridays, although this time I missed it and it came out on Saturday, but that doesn't usually happen. That's very rare. I think the last time it happened was... Yeah, no, I've hit it every single time since at least episode 12.
Yeah, at least 12. Because
at least 12.
Anything before 12 doesn't really count.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and the deadline, of course, is also Fridays, even though episodes come out on Mondays. That's really not related to the stuff. Anyway, so we are also, members of Doof Media, which is the fantastic podcast network that most of you are already aware of. We had the Doof and Chill session, which we already talked about for $5 patrons and above. So please consider donating or upping your donation because it's necessary to keep us alive. And we also have a bunch of projects that we want to do and that we know that you guys will love.
Yeah. And I mean, also by donating, you of course support us, but you will get in the exclusive Discord to where you can directly talk to us, talk to your other favorite Doof Boys, and talk to each other. Really make this a loving and caring community. Just by donating a little bit more money, possibly.
Yeah, you just need to get into the Discord, you just need to donate at the $1 level or above. Mm-hmm. I want to plug this week Media MD, the fantastic media podcast by our Australian Doof members. I was trying to think of Deep Impact. That's the freaking podcast that I listen to every single day that it comes out. They're prolific because they record podcasts all the time. So Media MD, each fortnight, they prescribe each other a piece of media and then they come back 2 weeks later to talk about how they enjoyed it. This week they did Neil Breen's Twisted Pair, which is a very weird movie, and I enjoyed listening to it even though I didn't know anything about Neil Breen, so I'd recommend that.
I would recommend please watch that movie.
Yes.
It's fantastic.
My ulterior motive for plug-in this week is that next week one of them will be on the podcast. At least hopefully, if everything turns out well, and hopefully I'll be on theirs. And to talk about Transformers, the 1986 cartoon movie. That's my goal anyway. So if the timing doesn't work out exactly, I'm sorry, but these things will happen eventually.
Yeah, one day. Which is beautiful because Transformers 1984, Matthias can talk about for at least 7 days.
1986, but yeah.
Hey. 6, 4, the only difference is 5.
Uh-huh. All right, I think that's all we have this week, right? So let's announce next week's words.
And next week's words are, if someone in the ether of the internet could give me a drum roll, that'd be great. Alright, so next week's words are spooky, Halloween, pumpkin, and candy. As you can see, they are all very much so themed.
Yeah, so next episode comes out the week of Halloween. It doesn't come out exactly on Halloween, but it comes out very, very close. So we figured it might as well have the episode out before Halloween. So, because Halloween Halloween is on a Thursday, right? So our episode is going to come out that Monday, the 28th. Yeah, so those are the words. They're very Halloween themed, so everyone's going to write something similar. You don't actually have to write about Halloween, but there is an additional holiday challenge. This is our very first holiday challenge we've ever had.
Yes.
So I decided just to do a twist on the rules. This isn't a very sophisticated twist, but Wildbow helped me with this, and it's the first one, right? So let's just see how it goes. So the holiday challenge is to write a Halloween themed story without using any of those words. So without using the words Halloween, spooky, candy, or what's the other one?
Without pumpkin. Using Halloween, spooky, candy, or pumpkin.
So you get to interpret what a Halloween themed story is. In my mind, that's literally anything that takes place on Halloween or fall, really, or anything scary. Like a spooky story counts as a Halloween story to me. So,
or if there's a slasher villain who runs into a movie theater and Scream is on the screen, that is a Halloween story.
That's very true. So you don't have to do the challenge. You could also do the words normally. Or you could just do whatever you want, because you're the one writing, right? Yeah. You're the one doing the right thing.
Honestly, the only caveat is to please, for the love of God, have fun.
That was so... Like you were disappointed in them for not having fun.
Well, what I have found in the last couple of months, and in the last lifetime, is that yes, writing is a beautiful thing, and it's something that we all love doing, which is why we're doing this. But at the same time, we can't forget that at the end of the day, it should be a fun thing. It shouldn't be bogged down with obligation and not being good enough. You should just have fun and write what you want to write, because no one else can write that. That's sort of true.
All right, so what will be... tell me your story with the words right now, Jarvis.
So, the story with the words, let me pull them back up. So, on the spooky night of Halloween, I decided it was time to take my girl to the pumpkin patch. And we took some cute photos. Her posing with really tiny pumpkins because they sold them there. Afterwards, I took her to my crib, and guess what I had? A bed filled with candy. So, she laid on that bed, bada bing, bada boom. I'm a grandfather.
Oh, didn't like that. Okay. So, I was munching on last Halloween's candy. Keep in mind that this was, Easter. So, they had all gone very bad. In fact, so bad that I got a spooky feeling in my stomach. I could not tell you, how uncomfortable it made me. So I went to my parents, and they told me that they had no idea how to help me. So I went to my grandma, and she said she had no idea how to help me, but she told me to go to the old witch's hut, which is also her grandmother. So I went to my great grandmother's special witch's hut, and she told me to eat a pumpkin, and so I did, and I threw up, and that's the end of the story.
Wow, that was a really solid story. So
it's really good.
Well, only one question: how do you feel spooky?
If I were to rewrite the story, I think I would go more in detail about the spookiness. And really bring out that feeling, you know.
Yeah, because I mean, honestly, like, I love the prose, right? I love what you were doing, but there weren't
me too. Yeah,
grounding images that I could really
it's really metaphorical
to really figure out what a spooky feeling is, you know? And I feel like that was missing from the piece overall for me.
Yeah. So I was hoping that would somehow transition to Do the Right Thing, but I don't know if it did. So, you know what? Just join us next week.
Yeah, just after do the right thing, guys.
You join us next week, and you'll do the right thing. And this is the messiest podcast episode that we've had since episode 2.
Yeah, but the beautiful thing is we're 28 deep. They can't touch us anymore. Yes, we mess up, but you've enjoyed it. So it's your fault.
Okay. Thanks for listening. You guys have a good night. Happy Halloween.
Happy